So, oh my gosh, for a July evening, it's so great to see you all. Thank you for coming. It's a beautiful night, and why don't we celebrate poetry on a beautiful July evening? So thank you all for coming to the Dave Show of Midstream reading series. My name is Diane Jarvenpa. I'm one of the 3 hosts for the series, and I just thought I'd start with the tradition that Dave always did, which is to go around the room and give us your name and what your relationship to writing might be, if you're a writer or a reader or whatever it is. So we'll start in the front here. I think I know this. Right there.
Hi, I'm Tracy Youngblom. I'm a poet and a prose writer and a college English teacher. And summer's a great time because I have time to read too, and all those other things.
I'm Carol Rucks, and poet and reader too.
Hi, Greg Watson here, poet and dad of a 7-year-old, and just happy to see so many faces back there for reading tonight.
I'm Frank Hudson. I'm a writer and composer who has the Carlando Project and has set over 600 other people's works to original music.
Hi, I'm Mary Young, and I'm also a poet and an avid reader. I happen to be in Carol's critiquing group, and I've recently read Clare's book, so I read a lot.
I'm Jim Levinson. I'm a poet. I have a couple books published, and I'm in the writing group with Carol.
I'm Marla Kennedy, and I have friends, and I write and rearrange other people's things.
I'm Mary Moore Easter. I'm a poet and have a memoir out this year, Solution book. And I have been in a writing group with one or another of a lot of these people. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Don Brunkwell. I'm a reader and writer of poetry. I had a book out about 6 weeks ago called Family Poems, A World Together. And that. I'm Mark McHugh, just a reader.
No jest, no jest. We wouldn't be here without you guys.
I'm Pat Eliasson, a friend of Carol's.
I'm Tom Peterson. I'm an avid reader, and we're a friend of Carol's.
I'm Jonathan Brown, also a reader and friend of Clare's.
I'm Paul Holm, a reader, and my relationship to poetry is that I'm the father of one of the poets tonight.
Good job.
Which one?
Yes, which one?
At the end,
I'm Lisa Livingston, and I'm a reader, and I know Tracy from a long time ago.
And I just now recognized her. I'm so sorry. And John, I can see you guys.
John Kramer, I'm a friend of Tracy's.
Sharon Lacombe, educator, reader, and a convert. I'm an artist.
Hi, I'm Dennis Lacombe. I'm a novelist, a playwright, a screenwriter, a poet, and I do a lot of other things with writing.
I'm Patrick Cabello-Hanson. I'm a poet and novelist. I'll be reading next month, and mostly from my new book, which is coming out in November, called Breathing in the Atmosphere.
I'm Daniel Lupton. I'm a Scottish poet.
I'm Clare Wahmanholm. I am a poet and a reader of poetry also.
I'm Tim Turner. I'm the wife of Tracy Youngblom. I'm a just retired teacher, and I write a weekly newsletter for 120 aging basketball players.
I'm Kathy Wernicke. I'm a poet. I am a reader of poetry. I have become a listener to novels as I garden and run and bicycle. I don't read novels as much as I used to. You have to read poetry.
Excuse me, I'm Bill McCarthy. I do reading, writing, and writing, and had a book of poetry, kind of a fall risk that was published late last year by a publishing firm up in Connecticut.
Hi, I'm Rachel Clark, visiting the area for a month. I'm a performer and a writer.
I'm Mark Walker. I'm a reader for sure, and a poet. I'm out so far, and one of the goals of the series.
I'm Mary Kay Rummel. I'm a poet, and I'm a retired college teacher. Good thing. Retired. It's hard to be a college teacher right now. And I'm working on my moon selected, which is a different kind of experience.
Hi, I'm Rebecca, and I'm a poet. That's all you need to know.
I'm Tom Wendell. I'm a poet, and I'm always looking for how other people have solved those problems of life.
I'm Timothy Young. I'm a writer, organizer, a performer, and my latest book was published by Jarvenpa this year, Threads on Painting.
My name is Klecko, and I'm a bread baker.
Who writes poetry? Joe Mandel, I'm a writer and a publisher. We put out Whistling Shade. I brought some copies if y'all want them. And
good.
we occasionally do books. We published Craig Watson's last book, Sunlight.
Well, welcome everybody. So great to have you here tonight. You can look at the website because this does get filmed if you want to look back at any of the archived readings that we have. There are books available by all these incredible writers, so I invite you to empty your pockets and come and grab some because they're really incredible. I thought I'd just read a quick poem of mine and then we'll get things going. This is called Follow the Wild Spill. Getting old. Her bones remember each hulking woods as she touches cattail, as others touch icons in an Orthodox church, attends Cottonwood release of seed, the way some sit front row at the movies. What pushed her out of the womb to meet the natural world in stunned intoxication once she could pick up rocks? Let us count back generations to bitchy bogs, ice blinds, forest spears, clouds of smelt, milky swans, naked nests, lonely lichen. Unapologetic, her DNA steers her to mystery snails in stormy marsh, starburst of mating dragonflies, dark wisdom in a village of toads. This is not riddle, but tug and instinct, raucous and sunstruck, the shimmer and the hidden, all found in agreeable valleys up to her neck in the zephyr, the bobolink, field of cornflowers that take impossible grieving and convert it into cold, wild song. So I'd like to welcome the first reader, the first writer. Carol Rucks graduated from the University of Wisconsin system, where she studied literature and creative writing with David Steingass and Dave Engel. She has worked mainly in libraries, especially at the Art, Music, Literature Reference Desk at the Minneapolis Central Library. Me too. Her poems have been published in Abraxas, West Branch, Clare, Earth's Daughters, Poetry Quarterly, and elsewhere. She is the author of the poetry collection Evidence of Rain, published by Noten Press, and a new second collection, Wavelength, just out from Kelsey Books. Please welcome Carol Rucks.
Let me know if you can hear me in the back. Okay, good. I'm going to start out with some wavelength poems and then end up with some Evidence of Rain poems. Waiting to be fooled. Sometimes a leaf looks like a small bird twitching on a tree in the boulevard, or a plastic bag in the middle of the road, all puffed up and moving in a circle. Or a plastic bag in the middle of the road, all puffed up and moving in a circle, resembles an animal on the move. And friendship sometimes looks like love, or love looks like friendship to passers-by on a cloudy day. A small dog looks like a cat from a distance, and a cat imitates a weasel slipping under a parked car at dusk. What more will trick the eye when we don't observe closely as the day travels slowly into darkness? Doppelgangers. In Quebec City, on a breezy summer day, I saw a woman who looked exactly like my French grandmother strolling along with a white poodle. We made eye contact, and I knew it wasn't her. And in Milwaukee, where I used to live, I saw a curly-haired woman with freckles and an eager smile who looked like my cousin Maggie from a distance. It wasn't her. It seems as if the gods have only 100 forms for us. They pour in the electric soul, and we emerge with bones and skin. A young man moved in across the street, lanky hair, long legs, imitating an old boyfriend with the same dark, shining eyes of a crow. People seem to appear and reappear from central casting, slouching forward, ready to ask for love or money. What a shock to behold someone on a street in London or Kansas City with a familiar hand gesture and tilt of the head, only to be surprised when they get a little closer. The voice is too high and the eyes beam the wrong color. This next poem is for all of you who have been married a long time. I see so much love burnished down to a stub. All those years of travel in the same tiny car might damage the heart and lungs. Take notice as men in pajamas huff down the paper corridors of mid-priced hotels, not looking back, the steady thump of footfalls, a warning sign. Couples in restaurants stare into separate windows, disparate light and color in their eyes. Women search their handbags as if the answer sifted down to the dark bottom, near the comb. Perhaps conversation will begin here in this dull breakfast nook by shifting some body weight or scraping one's shoes on the floor, awakening something warm before the waitress returns with the coffee. Where love goes, no one seems to know. It moves like a vapor through floral wallpaper and damp evening mirrors. It seeps into the night air as we sleep, dreaming the hours away. It gets lost in letters, diaries, basement workrooms. It goes back to where it came from. Mama's touch, daddy's will, sister's sure authority. It looks for a cleaner nest in another state, or just down the block in the city behind this brick facade and wrought iron fence to a quiet room, never to be seen again. I've written quite a number of bar poems, and this next one is a bar poem. And I lived in Milwaukee for 4 years and spent too much time in bars. But this one is sort of about the Astor Cafe. Happy hour. Under candlelight, some blind evening, when all our friends are home watching movies and drinking beer, and weary clouds settle in their eyes, we'll sit at a hidden table and sip Cabernet, eat Spanish cheeses, and all the quarreling, strong opinions, and calcified arguments will fall away. Time, the great blue river between us, will timber generous waves, and for an hour or two we'll do nothing but tender its pulse and rhythm, so all the best music in the world can be heard. I live in southeast Minneapolis, so this is kind of a southeast Minneapolis poem. In Dinkytown, I saw a guitar stuck in a window frame, used as a sash. And on my daily walk, I once saw a tuba flattened by a car or a truck, hanging inside someone's porch, modern sculpture. How many times have I begged myself to move away, far away from beer cans, university parties, students pissing over the neighbor's cyclone fence. In front of the McDonald's, a drunk boy once called to me with open arms, braying the word mother. Still, I'm not yet ready to bail. I love the unpredictability of the students, despite the conforming gestures, sweatshirts and jeans, cell phones in hand, careening bikes and skateboards. They think that life will go on forever, no matter the daring shenanigans. I believe it too when my eyes follow them zigzagging through the chaos of heavy traffic. Man cave. Though I am a woman, I have my own man cave, a place to go to get away. It consists of chocolate, red wine, and a certain dark corner. No sports are involved, no footballs or tennis balls. Sometimes I go all the way down under layers of covers, closed doors, blankets, blackness. My cat leads me there like the Pied Piper on a rumpled journey through dust and shadow. I'm less afraid of people and the president when I find a pure slant of silence and darkness, the curtains sheltering the haunt from street lamps and traffic. Listen to the geese flying overhead. I could name this cave for a saint or a rock star, say a little prayer to chase away the noise next door. I love to hide away under books, maps, photos of Italy, to sit in the dark as if strumming a new guitar. Okay, the last two poems are from Evidence of Rain. This next one is a poem about theft, but keep in mind it's mostly fiction. Robbery. I got caught stealing stockings and a pair of elegant shoes from a shop on Nicollet Avenue. I was supposed to meet my husband at a cafe there to drink glasses of burgundy wine. The boys caught me red-handed, so I gave the items back. I told them I'd never stolen anything before, but it's a lie. I lifted girlfriends for my sisters and boyfriends for my brothers. I took the gold from the sun and buried it in the garden. I seized the attention and energy of younger men and left them whimpering. I pilfered stardust and then put it back. I stole compliments and waved them away. As a child, I slipped into the neighbor's house to look at rooms of fine furniture, test the neatly made beds. Afterward, I palmed 2 olives from the refrigerator door. Okay, this last one is kind of a science fiction poem. It's about Ray Bradbury and how he grew up poor, as I did, and he sometimes had to borrow clothes for various occasions. Okay. Ray Bradbury standing. An afternoon sun flushes the curtain red and pushes the room toward a warm remoteness. I am wishing to be at the right hand of God among colorific saints and angels when Jesus Christ enters the room and stands on the sunlight. He is wearing a dark suit, and I am immediately aware that it is the very suit Ray Bradbury wore to his high school graduation ceremony, the suit that Ray's uncle was shot in during the armed robbery. I don't believe it is Jesus and Ray Bradbury's graduation suit until I put my finger in the bullet hole.
Thank you, Carol. I think you and I have to have a glass of wine and talk about the libraries and Southeast Minneapolis. I lived there for quite a few years, too. Tracy Youngblom has published 2 chapbooks of poems, as well as 2 full-length collections of poems, including The Recent Boy, from Calvin Carey Press. She has been the recipient of 2 Pushcart nominations and has published poems and essays widely. She teaches English at Anoka Ramsey Community College. Please welcome Tracy Youngblom.
Thank you. It's so great to be here, and it is such a deep joy to read in this series where everybody knows each other because we get to say a little bit about ourselves at the beginning. I just love that way of starting out. I'm going to read some poems from my newest book. I'm going to just tell you a little bit about it before I start. So this is a sequence of poems, meaning it's meant to be read in order. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So I'll just sort of give you an overview of what's explored in the book, and then I will just start reading. Oh, I guess I wasn't lined up with the microphone. Is that better? So in 1972, in March of that year, my parents divorced. My father was an alcoholic and a womanizer, and my mother finally had enough. Then in June of that year, so 3 months later, my brother, who was the only boy and the youngest of the 4 of us, fell down the stairs to the basement and got a cerebral hemorrhage and died the next day. So, you know, the book sort of starts with that tragedy in our life and then sort of explores what it's like, you know, at various points in life, and especially as I raised 3 boys of my own. The poems are not titled, they're numbered because it's a sequence, and I'm not going to read the numbers, I'll just pause in between. I'm going to start with the first poem, which is meant to be a prologue to the collection, and then just go into the poems. Imagine a mirror dropped and shattered, a certain beauty in the fragmented, mosaicked wreckage. It appears arranged, purposeful, artfully confusing. That is illusion. Nothing fits together. There is no surface, just images lifted and hurled against each other. That's how it is with fractured memory, the past. Not to mention the bad luck it is to enter. It's like a crime syndicate. Even casual involvement will cost you your innocence. I didn't break the mirror. I wouldn't choose to rummage. My face is hidden, even from myself. You can cut yourself open or see something that is not there, trying to retrieve or repair. Maybe a cobbled version of that boy's life will emerge if I crawl long enough, mustering the faith of the doubtful. Before his heartbeat, it was Christmas. Presents scattered like building blocks, then a new carpet of wrapping paper. Our father looked down from his fuzzy height and said, "Time for bed," but he meant beer, and chased us off with no story except the one his recklessness was reciting to my mother. If he had seen us even a moment, his small wavering flames breathed his story of power on us, we would have been extinguished. Instead, he climbed on my mother to narrate, implanting the earliest version of my brother, those two joined cells locked in their struggle to become the same sound in 2 volumes. Thump, 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 thump. A boy in a field is just a boy, unless he's lost and wandering. Then the field becomes his conflict, and he becomes the character who must resolve it. God seems to have abandoned him, which we identify as foreshadowing. But enter us, makeshift neighborhood gang. We spread out like posses in all the good old westerns to snare him in our human trap. He will not escape our fears. We thrust aside witchgrass at each step. We resolve to corral him home, ignore that catch under our shirts, knowledge of the alternate ending. We peer at the ground for a flash of blue jacket or blood. He will be restored, scrubbed with hugs and by our mother in the bath. We will bear with us this memory and this one, the potential for disaster, the other true story. In 1972, everyone has a finished basement except us. We are behind. We have 2x4 studs, no sheetrock, cement floors, unadorned wooden stairs. Between each set, a patch of open air that we girls glimpsed as we tumbled down. Those spaces, a respite. At the bottom, we stood up, undid our bumps, walked back up, ate dinner as usual, washed dishes afterwards. Afterwards, he was not like us. Doctors said he would never. If they sawed off the top of his head, no. If they did nothing, they did. Other people choosing, moving past us into the future, we were used to that. That first Christmas, presents from my grandmother, white vinyl go-go boots, mittens, albums, the Partridge Family for me. Our mother had said, don't expect presents. She gave us a package anyway, ping pong balls and a net, the table waiting at home. Such luxury stole our breath. Dinner was finished. Roast beef, rich gravy, the mashed rutabagas I loved. No one would play ping pong with me on the kitchen table. I stomped my feet, carried on, all alone in the kitchen. So embarrassing. I was 9. Mother led me away to talk. I didn't want to talk, I wanted. She gripped my shoulders, spoke words that struck like a slap, from which I recoiled, that made me raise my chin to defiant heights in response. Words so true, it hurt to deny them. I miss him too. We prayed for others, not ourselves, special prayers for our dead relatives, adding names as they accrued. Stub and Grandpa and Timmy, Bud and Mildred and George. If they couldn't come back, what was the point? If my mother had known my doubt, she would have dragged me to confession, so I kept it hidden, invited it. When the time came to ask God for something myself, I was speechless. Figured I was born to do it on my own. Coughed up some excuse. Called it prayer. So this skips forward. There's some poems in the book about raising my own children, so this is one of those. His arm was in a cast from his recent fall when he wrote the words, sitting in church with me, because he couldn't play safely in the nursery. God, Jesus, in pencil, huge letters. It was hard, his eyes said, to write left-handed. I smiled down, my little believing boy, even though he was just trying to be good. The preacher raised both arms in the air to make a point, brought them down on the pulpit, a stuttering punctuation to a sentence I didn't want to hear, now that I saw how much it pleased me to have my boy want to please me. My arm tightened around his shoulders, shield to ward off this dark passion that could lure him to God and away from me. Just two more. I may have gotten this wrong. You scribbled in a book once, book borrowed from my teacher, Charlotte's Web. You must have been 2. And I told my first lie to the teacher. I lost your book. But our mother, who could read the minds of dust motes, found out, made me spend my own money to buy my teacher a replacement book she didn't want. Where are you in this story? Where the lost teacher? I can't even remember finding the defaced book or recall speaking to you in anger. You were so little. I pray I spared you my scalding words. My memory is slight, petty. Our mother may have been right. You should be ashamed of yourself, is what she said to me. I'm going to end with this poem. This is not the last poem in the book, just so you know. So strange. I want to deny it, but no, I have seen you, felt you. At the bottom right corner of my bed, shape passing through vision as I woke from a dream. Your hands on my hands on the steering wheel, sudden and warm, not frightening, while I waited for the light to change. Maybe I am becoming my crazy great-grandmother who once said, honey, sometimes you just have to scream until you laugh. Each time, I knew it was you, certainty that usually means fake. The psychic says, you forgive me for not being there for your great event. Who is she to know? I will keep hoping for a next time, even if I'm imagining all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. This is another tradition of Midstream. It's to pass the basket, because Unitarian, and whoever has hosted our Midstream in the past, we've always passed the basket as an offering back to the place that lets us host. So if you have a little change you want to offer back to the Unitarian, we're just going to pass this around. Greg Watson's work has appeared in numerous literary journals and anthologies, including the St. Paul Almanac, and This Was 2020, Minnesotans Write About Pandemics and Social Justice in a Historic Year. He is the author of 9 collections of poetry, most recently The Sound of Light. He is also co-editor with Richard Broderick of The Road by Heart, Poems of Fatherhood, published by Noden Press. Please welcome Greg Watson.
Okay. Well, thank you all again for being here. I've read to a lot of empty chairs over the years. This is much nicer.
Samsonite reading series.
So this is the new book, The Sound of Light, and my quick explanation of this book is that it's a book of joy and gratitude, and it's also a book of mourning. There are some poems mourning the loss of my sister last year, and also the experience of being a dad to a wonderful young daughter. The book opens with a poem for my daughter and closes with a poem for my daughter, and goes in some different directions in between. This is the first poem of the book. This is called Perhaps You Were Never So Small. Perhaps you were never as small as our simple eyes observed, but merely coming from a distance we could not measure, a star whose light had traveled centuries before it could be named or seen. Perhaps this is the point where time itself slows to an audible pulse, one clenched hand conducting through the bone-lit dark, the thick rhythm of our steps leading continuously home, through the shadowless shift of moon and vapor trails of memory, leaning back into a music that could only be known by heart, a music that was somehow made for us all along, long before we had bodies and mouths with which to sing. That was the first poem that I ever wrote for my daughter, and I thought, okay, I got that out of the way. I'll probably continue writing poems for her until you're all tired of them and she's embarrassed, but I can't help myself. So last summer, I got word that my sister died. She was out in California at the time. And I thought this book was nearly done, but that sort of changed the balance of what this book should be. And so I wanted to honor her in this. And this was the first poem that came to me. This is Sitting with My Sister. When I received the news today of your passing, a fact somehow known viscerally before I touched the phone to listen, I wanted only to keep it to myself, to not speak to anyone during those long, slow-moving minutes, their silence demanding only more silence, their time, more time. I wanted to hold you there, secretly, perhaps selfishly, between that cave of heart and rib cage, to hold you suspended like a single breath, or a seed which I was neither able to swallow nor spit out. I wanted to cradle that moment, inseparable from you, hovering like a thought not quite formed, not simply for the sake of sparing others, but to sit with you one last time, as we had near the end in your tiny apartment, too quiet for you, and those drugstore Christmas lights blinking on and off against the smoky California sun. I wanted merely to sit with you once more, just us, before picking up the phone, handing you back to the world of the living, the realm you had so recently left behind, weightless and wordless now, suddenly beyond the endless aches and ailments of matter, your absence only beginning to make itself known. Diane and I are in an unfortunate club, having both lost siblings last year. I've lost a brother and a sister now, and the way I describe it is losing part of myself and my childhood goes with them. It's like people who verify your life story sort of leaving you. This is a poem of place, and also one for all you music lovers. This is called Used Record Store. You can smell the basements of long ago here, within these cardboard sleeves. Slender spines creased and breaking apart. Can almost feel the dampness seeping through the cold cinder blocks. Stale cigarette smoke and voices turn suddenly into ghosts. You can hold the shroud of another world, half awake, waiting to be rediscovered. Can wander aimlessly the long, narrow aisles, the way you did when you were still a kid, hungry for any sign of life to find you. You thought those songs would last forever, the way summer did in every chorus, repeated endlessly into a silence not quite. You thought that girl who taught you to kiss would stay just a moment longer, the sound of her laughter like the incantation of something just beyond your reach. You are still searching, thumbing the racks for something you may have missed, still looking and listening for a message that has taken so long to find you. This is a poem called Night Driving. And this is probably my favorite kind of poem to read, is where it starts off in one place, and I just sort of follow along, and it takes me somewhere where I wasn't quite expecting. You had argued again, argued yourself into opposing corners, neither quite knowing the reason, or what resolution might consist of. She storming off to bed, you staying up, surrounded by the dull throb of television light, the angular forms of men and women laughing and embracing with the ease of well-rehearsed lives. You stumbled, thoughtless as a shadow, out to the car, crawled the smooth, darkened streets, names on signs becoming illegible. You wanted it that way, the slow, measured calm of forgetfulness, that simple falling away. Found yourself down by the railroad tracks, the oil tankers and boxcars, mountains of scrap piled into rust and silence. A person could leave in any direction, you remember thinking, wander uncared for and without care, the way your father did at 14, knowing only motion, the vague and endless promise of arrival. But you were neither as brave nor as reckless. In a moment you would drive back, slip into bed with the practiced ease of a pickpocket, strangely familiar among the bodies of passing strangers. You would sleep and fail to dream. Decades later, you would still remember the enormous houses of shadow, the pencil gray outline of the steel tracks, the ghostly sound of a world gone still. You would remember all this from a distance, when it would be too late to change direction or to alter your own imperfect script. This is a second poem that I wrote for my sister. This is a last photograph with my sister. I don't know why this photo, the last that we took together, is muted in grays and sepias, as if that broad West Coast sunlight was somehow
being filtered through an antique lampshade or a scrap of newsprint held up to window glass. You look so small on the bench beside me, your bird-winged shoulders folding in on themselves, your kind face hovering somewhere between a smile and a vague sense of surprise. Your matchstick legs could barely hold you up, not for long, your balance swimming in and out like some uncertain dance partner, seemingly at random. Yet you insisted on walking with me through Chinatown, buying a hand-knit sweater and chocolates for your niece, those red paper lanterns suspended across every street, as if the streets themselves, narrow and all but directionless, were merely an afterthought. You insisted, too, on that enormous Christmas tree that lit up the wharf, sea lions barking with hunger, as always, for all to hear, each blubbery mound and voice calling out, indecipherable from the next. We are waiting in this moment for one last taxi to the airport, as ordinary as that. But the sun was much warmer than it looks, the palm trees behind us alive and gently swaying, while the snow back home, 3 feet of it, was a few short hours away. I can't blame you for not missing it at all. I thought I'd try a couple newer poems. I'll throw in a guitar poem for Diane. My mom played guitar, and when she moved across the country, she left her old guitar with me. I've never quite gotten over the romance of the guitar, especially the acoustic guitar. And for someone with no musical talent, I think I write a lot about music. This is called My Mother's Guitar. My mother's guitar, silent now these past few years, rests in a corner of the room, behind that old worn chair, each weary, each leaning in their separate directions. I remember clearly the first songs it offered up. Froggy went a-courtin', blowing in the wind, the wayfaring stranger. Remember too the warm, earthy smell inside its Bible black case, the ghost image of its 6 strings in that gold plush lining, long thin roads disappearing into themselves. I can see the wooden cathedral hidden within the sound hole, small sparks of angled light drifting in and out of view. The hand that made those chords ring have flown like birds far away, hands gone arthritic, fingers alternately tingling and numb. But I can still feel the fine ridges wrapped around each string, how the smallest touch sounded like a secret being whispered, a kind of conjuring with no need for words. It rests here now, between journeys, exhaling nearly audibly, holds its songs closely, forever patient in its memories, its history, its knowing, not forgetting the breath and the blood that rose to meet it, not letting go of any of it, not just yet. And this is a new poem that I wrote for my daughter. I have a daughter who was, like me as a child, very sensitive, which is, I think, a blessing and a curse. So I wrote this poem for her called Sensitive. I have never wanted for you, dearest daughter, to be anything other than the beautiful and sensitive soul you have always been, collecting oak seeds to watch them spin back down to earth, those long-stemmed dandelions bent over as if in prayer, deciphering the forms of strange new animals among the clouds where the ancestors sleep, faces smiling back from the most ordinary of stone. I have admired as an outsider the special language you share with birds and trees, how the cats in the neighborhood all come to you, unafraid, knowing you already, and how you mourned deeply the death of your betta fish, the one you called sister and told all your troubles to. I have heard you choosing each word for a poem or a song, tapping them against the roof of your mouth, letting the new sounds settle until they filled your ears as perfectly as the silence. Watched you conduct with arms gently waving a string concerto constructed in your mind. And when bullies have thrown their sharpened words like so many stones, I have sat within your sorrow, unable to offer an answer as to why some, young or old, simply enjoy the act of causing harm. These are the times when I want nothing more than to protect you from the inclement elements of self, the ever-shifting atmosphere of your inner world overwhelming you, to close temporarily the windows against the sudden rain of summer, until the sun again finds its way, small enough to tuck into your pocket like a coin, thin and hot to the touch, rub smooth at the center, reflecting. Thank you all.
Thank you, Greg. Clare Wahmanholm is the author of Meltwater, published in 2023, Redmouth in 2019, and Wilder in 2018. Her work has been recently appeared or is forthcoming from Cream City Review, Tri-Quarterly, Sierra, Ninth Letter, Blackbird, Washington Square Review, Copper Nickel, and Beloit Poetry Journal. She was a 2020-2021 McKnight Writing Fellow and is the winner of the 2022 Montreal International Poetry Prize. Please welcome Clare Wahmanholm.
Hello. It's really nice to be here in this. This is a fun room. I like this room. I feel like we were across the hall before, which is also a nice room, but I like the size of this one. It's a little cozier. It's a little more intimate. Thank you for inviting me here, Diane. This is super lovely, and thank you to Carol and Tracy and Greg. It's lovely reading with you all. I did the Midstream series 2 summers ago, I want to say, and I was reading poems from Meltwater, but the book obviously wasn't out yet. And so it's fun to be here and actually have the physical copy, because it was published in March, and here it is. So I thought I'd read some favorites from this collection. The book is elevator pitch for the book, mostly about my choice to become a parent during this age of fascism and climate catastrophe and terrorism and that sort of thing, and my very complicated feelings about that. Lots of parenthood poems here this evening. We know how we feel. So I'll sort of move chronologically through the book, which begins with the speaker who is thinking about having a child, wants a child. Then we get the speaker carrying the child, and then the child is born kind of early on, halfway through the book, and then the rest of the book is kind of the long aftermath of that. So the first one I'll read is called "You Will Soon Enter a Land Where Everything Will Try to Kill You." And it's the speaker is speaking to her unborn child. Inside me, you're an eel, a whipping ghost, a root of sinew leaping from blackberry to minnow to walnut tree. Your body sleeps and bucks beneath my body's sheet. Only the idea of you is visible. I pulse with doorknobs that bob, then sink back into the sea of me, ungraspable. Mimicry implies its own necessity, that you are already prey and everything out here means you harm. You are, it does, and I have done nothing to stop it, have in fact done all I can to make it easy for the world to wrap itself around you and squeeze. I have no plan to keep the chemicals separate from the lake, the acid separate from the rain, the bird from the glass that breaks it. Thud. I picture your blood on every brick ledge, your fingers beneath each sledgehammer. I will imagine your death in every season, by water in summer, by illness in autumn, a febrile seizure whenever you close your eyes. In the world's rich dirt, I could have planted brambles, clovers. I could have just loved the earth instead of inventing new ways to hurt. Half our genome is shared with fruit, more with fish, the most with ghosts. Your body seems to know this, that jawless fish cannot be struck by cars, that no one mourns a blackberry crushed beneath a naked foot. Therefore, be deep-dwelling muscle, be sweet vegetable a moment longer. Before us lies a fatal, blossoming desert full of heat and shadow. I am about to set my heart down into a wild burrow. A clock is about to start. And the next one I'll read is also toward the beginning here. The child's at the point, like almost at the point of being born. And the title of the poem is M, like the letter, and it's part of this alliterative sequence of poems that I started writing after my first child was born about 6 years ago. And I started writing these as I was reading a lot of like children's books, which are very alliterative, which do kind of take the alphabet as their central kind of structuring focus. And there's a lot of like poeticism and lyricism in that was like very compelling to read in those early kind of postpartum months. M. M is for murmur and mutter, the ambiguity of the Mobius strip, the marsh, the maybe trembling between two membranes. M is for mother, dark matter, the matrix that cradles the muscadine, marble, monosyllable moon. Be menagerie, multivocal madrigal. I carry your multitudes through midsummer, through marigolds and mayapples, through mud. I hide you in the middle of a maze, bury you like minerals in the mine of my body. You are marrow-deep, marine, mollusk in your mother-of-pearl hull. The months are a moat between you and melancholy missiles, mourning. M is for the meteor, magnifying through the telescope's lens, the metronome unmuffling. M is for metamorphosis and mutant. I am more and more mountainous. I am a mare rolling in a midnight meadow, all musk and muzzle. M is for the migrations of monarchs, mule deer, mullet, for magnetic fields, for the way the world pulls you from me and you materialize. You are motor, made music, machine, made mortal. I am mended and marooned somewhere between mist and milk. I molt and mangled. I molt, become myself. So for this next poem, which is called The Sun, the Ship, the child is out in the world now, and if you're a parent, you know how terrifying that is. And like everything is like unbearably precarious, and like sometimes, even though I knew like logically it wasn't reasonable, it felt very tempting to just like numb myself to that and just like shut all the feelings down and turn away from risk and danger and all those things. And this poem it starts with an epigraph from W.H. Auden's, like my favorite poem, maybe Musée des Beaux-Arts, which he wrote while visiting the Musée des Beaux-Arts, I believe in Brussels. And the poem is about a painting of Icarus falling into the sea after his wings have failed. And in the painting itself, Icarus is not like the center of the painting, he's down in like a little corner there, he's just barely visible, falling into the water. And the epigraph goes, "The sun shone as it had to on the white legs disappearing into the green water, and the expensive, delicate ship that must have seen something amazing, a boy falling out of the sky, had somewhere to get to, and sailed calmly on. Say I have finally died. Say grief has run the last grain of me through its fist, and I lie piled and dull beneath its shadow, raw material. If I could be remade, I would not be. I am done dragging my leaden shoes through fields ringed with panic, done lesioning the soil with my own nettled shadow. Let me choose that inhuman coin of a sun, or the golden ship flying beneath it toward what might have been a meteorite, toward what left no stain, no frozen monolithic wave. I am ready to see something amazing, an explosion, a sudden cancer, a boy falling out of the sky and into the arms of the water, any gun, and not run my mind like trees through a pulper, wondering when my child's turn will come. For this, I would kill all that is warm and weak in me. I would flush the rot into my body, rinses clear and calm. Let me sail on lukewarm currents that offer no recognition of the bodies that fall through them, though the spray still hangs like smoke an inch above the water's face. And we'll stay in kind of like Greek myth mode for a second. As I've become more of a parent, I think I believe more in like magical thinking, if we want to call it that. Like, I very seriously like believe in hubris, and that like I acknowledge all the things that delight me, or like all the things that are going well for me, or whatever, that like fate will come around and take it all away, right? So I have a hard time writing the poem of delight, or like writing uplifting, but like that's not a mode I write in, because I'm like, I'm no dummy, I've read Greek mythology, like I don't want to be smitten, but that's a different kind of connotation, right? Anyway, and so this poem is called If Anyone Asks, and it starts with two epigraphs from Ovid's Metamorphoses from the Niobe episode. And Niobe had 7 sons and 7 daughters, and said like very loudly within earshot of the gods, like, oh, look at all my sons and daughters, like everything is so great, like nothing will ever go wrong for me now. And Apollo and Artemis are like, ooh, got some bad news for you, and they kill all her sons and daughters. And she turns into a rock, and I think just cries. Maybe that's Latona. Ooh, I can't remember. It doesn't go well for Niobe, is the upshot. So the first epigraph is from Niobe, and it says, by now I have so many and so much that fortune can't do harm. And the second epigraph is the voice of the narrator, saying, do not compete with gods, and do not boast. I do not wake up buzzing with happiness. In fact, my bed is full of wasps. I have been stung everywhere tender. I have not had fun in a long time, maybe in ever. My blessings do not run over, and also I have none. My sink is leaking. My sink is running over with wasps. They have carried off all my sugar. See how poor I am, how luckless, how unshapely my head from which no hair falls in waves. I have no children to speak of, no robes sewn with threads of gold, no robes. I am a patch of dirt, a glass of vinegar, a bony goose among fat others. I am an unworthy enemy, small and mean. In fact, calamity has already been and gone, its arrows still clean. I do not need to play dead. Not even death would want to play with me. It's a fun one, I like that one. At some point, like we're a pretty good ways kind of like through the book here, and I was starting to wonder if it was possible for me anymore at this point to write a poem that had no children in it, not even my children, but like the idea of children, if I could write kind of like the child-free poem. Because, I mean, and like even though children don't literally appear in the poems, like they're always in the background, they're always in the white space of the page, right? But I was like, no, I'll like take the assignment literally, and like let's see if I can do it. No children in the poem at all. Spoiler, it doesn't work, you know, because as soon as you're announcing that you're not going to do it, you've already messed up, right? Poem with no children in it. Instead, the poem is full of competent trees, sturdy and slow-growing. The trees live on a wide, clean lawn full of adults. All night, the adults grow older without somersaulting or spinning. They grow older while thinking about themselves. They sleep well and stay out late, their nerves coiled neatly inside their grown bodies. They don't think about children because children were never there to begin with. The children were not killed or stolen. This is absence, not loss. There is a world of difference, the distance between habitable worlds. It is the space that is unbearable. The poem is relieved not to have to live in it. Instead, its heart ticks unfretfully among the trees. The children who are not in the poem do not cast shadows or spells to make themselves appear. When they don't walk through the poem, time does not bend around them. They are not black holes. There are already so many knots in this poem. It is already so negatively charged. The field around the poem is summoning children and shadows and singularities from a busy land full of breathing and mass. My non-children are pulling children away from their own warm worlds. They will arrive before I can stop them. When matter meets antimatter, it annihilates into something new. Light, sound, waves and waves of something like water. The poem's arms are so light they are falling upward from the body. Why are you crying? And the last one I'll read, I was going to read kind of a bummer of a one, because that, again, that's all I write. But I'll read instead my favorite poem, which is called Glossary of What I'll Miss. And it's an abecedarian where 26 lines, each line goes A, B, C, D, all the way down through Z. And I can't really show you here, but it's also a reverse abecedarian. So on the right-hand margin, all the lines end with Z, Y, X, W, V, U, T. So it's abecedarians every direction. I love a good abecedarian. It's my favorite form. Thank you guys for being such a good audience and coming out. This has been really lovely. Glossary of What I'll Miss. Autumn, always. The buzz by which we know the katydid and the fly. Coral accumulating its slow colonies, the flax darting bluely through the meadow. Every evening, the valley is a V filled with amethyst heat. I was once full of you, girl who will someday be ghost, heart that hurts and hurts. I was once an unscarred peach. But terror jigsawed my edges until I was sticky as burdock kernels, clinging to the burlap legs of every passing catastrophe. Moons ago, magnolias and jasmine meant swoon, not imagine a life without them. Orange weavers didn't always trail plumes of their own vanishing through the dusk. Q is for quiet brooms swelling into disquiet. J reminds me that by June, the year is already hemisphered, a deflating balloon. My own march trills somewhere in the field behind me, its song unraveling. Even you are made of vanishing, new as you are. Waves of yourselves have already died, Xeroxed themselves, and died again. Such magic yields fewer and fewer miracles. I'll miss the lamb, zealously. You, the autumn blooming sweet pea. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire, and thank you. Let's another round of applause for all the ladies this evening. It's so incredible. I mean, I always, Tracy and I read together not too long ago, and those are such tender poems, and it's hard for me not to cry when I'm listening to them because they're so incredibly crafted, but so beautiful. I've shared Greg's poems and Claire's poems with my class, and some of them are here today, so I don't know if you recognize them or not. So I'm so glad that you read an abecedarian and you read Used Record Store, because that's an incredible poem. So thank you all for being here. Again, we have books available, so please check them out, because you can actually get them from, not that I'm anti-bookstore, but you can get them from the people themselves, and they can write, and they get some of the money, and we don't make a lot of money, you guys. So, but next August, the readers, Richard Terrell will be hosting, and it's Brian Baumgart and Patrick Cabello Hansel, Rochester's Poet Laureate Jean Crockett, and Morgan Grace Willow will be next month. So please come and join us again. And some of us go to Sweeney's afterwards if you're interested in that. But again, thank you so much for coming. It meant a lot to see you all and share poetry on a summer evening. Thank you.